Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something I'm calling Master of the Modes. And I'm going to be going through all of the modes of the major scale. And we're going to, now first of all, what is a mode of the major scale? All right, the major scale is the foundation for all Western music, Western harmony, Western music theory. And the C major scale specifically is typically the first scale you learn. I'm just going to play that for you now. I'll put the notes up on screen. Now, what makes the major scale is the intervals between the notes that are used. Okay, so we have a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and half step. Okay, that intervallic formula or pattern is what gives that scale its signature sound. Okay, now modes of the major scale just simply mean that you're going to look at the framework of the C major scale, and instead of playing from C to C, you're going to play, for example, you play from D to D, but still using the notes of the C major scale. So we're not adding in sharps or flats. We're going from C to C using white keys up to D to D using white keys. So now here is what's known as the second mode of the major scale, D Dorian. So I need you to notice that the notes used are the same notes we used for C major, but now we're starting on D. And the magic behind that, the reason it sounds different, even though it's the same ingredients, is simply because the interval formula between the notes used from that starting note of D is now completely different than the major scale. So therefore you have a different sound. Okay. Now I like to compare modes to their parallel major scale. And what I mean by that is a parallel scale is a scale that is of a different quality but having the same tonic note, the same root note. All right. So we're going to be working primarily with D Dorian for this video, but I want to compare it to D major, which would be in parallel to it because they both start on D, just so you can compare the difference between the major and Dorian. Okay, so the D major scale is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Okay, now I want you to notice it has the same quality of sound as C major. Here's C major again, and here's D major. All right, they both have the same quality of sound because they are both major scales. That is the type of scale that they are. The difference between D major and D Dorian is basically you're going to flat the third and bring the F sharp down to F, and then you're going to flat the 7 and bring the C sharp down to C. So now we're going to play those two back and forth. Here's D major. Here's D Dorian. All right, so there's two spots within that scale where the notes have shifted. They've actually been made flat on the 3 and the 7. So that's the difference between D major as like a starting point and D Dorian. As you guys may know, most music is written in either a major or a minor key. Okay, modes present other flavors, other options to pull from and choose from, and Dorian, again, being the second mode of the major scale, just happens to be kind of a mode, a specific sound that is mostly minor because we have a flatted third and a flatted seventh, but it's not very dark. It's kind of wistful and whimsical, and it lends itself to a lot of different genres, whether it be rock or jazz. It's very widely used. We're going to take a look at some popular songs that use chord progressions from the Dorian mode. So with the major scale, you'll have chord progressions like the 1-4-5 or the 2-5-1 or the 1-6-4-5. Because it's a mode and not a traditional key like the major or minor, and I don't want any arguments from people on this. I'm just trying to make this as digestible to everyone as possible. The bottom line is here, the Dorian mode is less used, but still used, and I want to explain how it is used and how it can be used. So you can still make chord progressions from the Dorian mode. All right, the first example today is going to be the song Any Color You Like by Pink Floyd. And for the majority of this song, it is a 2-chord vamp back and forth. It is a D minor 7 to G7, or I'm sorry, a D minor 7 to G. Okay, now the chords D minor 7 to G, I'm actually playing the G as a G7, doesn't matter, but here you get the sound of what we would call a 1 to 4. Now the parent scale for D Dorian is C major. In C major, there is a D minor 7. It's the 2 chord. And in C major, there is a G chord. It's the 5 chord, right? Whether it's a G or a G7 doesn't really matter. It's all about the color. Any color you like, right? So because we're in the world of Dorian, D now becomes the foundation. D becomes the root. D becomes the 1 chord. And it happens to be a minor 1 chord, right? And it's a minor 7. And then that G, whether you play a G or a G7, is still a major chord. It's still considered kind of a 5, right? It's major and it's a 5. In this case, in the key of C, I should point out, in this case it's the 4. It's a major 4 within the D Dorian mode, okay? So that's your first example. All right, guys, another example of a chord progression in a Dorian mode would be a 1, 3, 5, 4, and we're going to be doing this in B Dorian. So let's lay the foundation for this. Dorian is the 2nd degree, right? B is the 2nd note of the A major scale, all right? So we're going to play the A major scale. Now we're just going to move up and play the same scale from B. All right, so those are the notes we're going to be using. This song is called Get Lucky by Daft Punk. And again, we're doing a 1, 3, 5, 4 in the mode known as B Dorian. All right, again, we're in Dorian, which is 2. It's the 2nd mode of the major scale, making the 1st chord a minor chord. I'm not going to do this justice, but I just want you guys to hear the chord progression for Get Lucky by Daft Punk. All right, we'll start off with a B minor 7 to a D, and then we got that F sharp minor 7 to an E. All right, so there you go. You have a 1, 3, 5, 4 in the key of B Dorian. Great example. Another example, another chord progression for the Dorian mode would be a 1, 3, 7, 4. In this case, we're doing the song Mad World by Tears for Fears. We've got F sharp minor as the 1. And then we've got A major as the 3. And then we've got E major as the 7. And then finally we have the B major as the 4. So a 1, 3, 7, 4, key of F sharp, Dorian, which happens to be a minor 1 chord. All right, another example for you. There's another example for you. That is the song Wicked Game by Chris Isaac, old 90s tune, very well written. The three chords that make this up are B minor, A major, and E major. And we're going to look at this from the perspective of the B minor being the 1 chord, and of course it's a minor 1 chord. We are in B Dorian for this one. The minor 1 chord being the second note of your parent scale, A major. We're then going to the A major, which would be up to the 7th degree, and then our last chord is the E major. So we're doing a 1-7-4 in the key of B Dorian. All right. Our next example comes from Pink Floyd again, also with a Dorian example on the song Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. All right, the chords used here are D minor, G major, C major, and F major. All right, so we're still from the parent scale of C major, but we're starting on that D. Everything else that happens after that is compared to that starting point. So the D minor is your 1 chord in D Dorian, your G is your 4, your C is your 7, and then your F is your 3. So there you have Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 in D Dorian. Alright guys, I hope that all made sense. I tried to break this down into the smallest, easily digestible pieces as possible. The Dorian mode, where it comes from, how it's formed, chord progressions that you can use within the confines of the mode, songs that you can now go listen to hear the sound of the Dorian mode. There's one more thing that I'd like to do to serve this Dorian mode. I'm going to grab my guitar and I'm going to plug in and I'm going to turn up that distortion and I'm going to crank out some very simple Dorian mode type runs. I'm going to do like a little bit of a solo improv over some jam tracks. I'm going to discuss the guitar shape as well. So stay tuned. Coming up right after this, the guitar portion of the Dorian mode. I'll see you there. Welcome back everybody to the guitar portion of the Dorian mode breakdown. We're going to work with a jam track that is in E Dorian. So I want to talk about what E Dorian is and then play it on guitar and then we're going to jam. All right. So E Dorian, again, Dorian being the second mode of the major scale, E is the second note of the D major scale. So we're essentially playing the D major scale notes but starting on E. All right. So it's E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, and then finally E. Now on guitar, because the guitar is such a multi-layered experience when it comes to where to play things, what patterns to use, what fingers to use, I'm just going to break this down very simply into one shape. Use 5-7 as E. Then we're going to do 5-9 as F sharp, 5-10 as G. Then we're going to do 4-7 as A, 4-9 as B, and then we have 3-6 as C sharp, 3-7 as D, and then 3-9 as E. Okay? So if you're thinking about it in terms of the frets per string, it's kind of like a 1-3-4, 1-3, and then down a fret for the 1-2-4 at the end. So it most resembles like a minor pattern, but that shift on the third level of that scale, that third string there, brings it down by a half step. So a little tricky here and there to get used to, right? But we're going to do, again, the E Dorian jam track And I believe the chords used, I'm going to link in the description this jam track. The owner of the channel makes it well known that you can use this stuff, so I want to give him the credit. And if you like what you hear, check it out. He's one of my favorites. He's been around for probably close to a decade. He's got several 100,000 subscribers, so this guy's got some good stuff.